Actually are there. And here we are. It is another Wednesday night. We are bringing you the Southbound in Town podcast, the premier NFC South podcast. Um, and as you can see, there is only the three of us this evening. Some of the members of our group. Oh, there's Greg. All right, fantastic. We got one more. The members of our group have been busy over, the holidays and whatnot, so we're down one tonight. So we don't have a Bucks rep, but nevertheless, we are planning on having a good show and bringing that fan perspective about the NFC South to you guys. Let me introduce who I have here first. Aaron Freeman, who is representing the Bucks. Aaron, if you'll let people know where they can catch your show and where can they find you out on Twitter.
Well, I'm on Twitter at FalcFans. I just had two podcasts. It's going to be three podcasts. There's another one coming out tomorrow on FalcFans.com. One came out today on FalcFans.com. You can check out the Falcon Central Radio on ProFootballCentral.com or on YouTube. Just search Falcon Central Radio. Two different podcasts, but 2 episodes of one and 1 episode of another. So if you guys want to hear Falcons podcast, I'm on the airways plenty this week.
And that's where you can get all your Falcons info. Greg, it's good to see you, buddy. It's been a little while. I hope Thanksgiving was good to you. And where can people find you at on the Twitter? All right, Greg, just to let you know, we're having some trouble hearing you. We can't hear you, but I'll come back to you. Tadeus, my man, how are you, brother?
I'm good.
I'm glad to hear it. I really am. I know you've been busy on the webs here recently. Why don't you let people know where they can find you out on Twitter and where they can find some of the work that you've been working on here?
The Twitter is TMuhammad23. The YouTube is Mr. T Money 1993. You can catch me on the Cat Chronicles website. I recently was on I can't think of his radio show. Chicken and Greens. What's his radio show called?
God, it escapes me too.
Yeah, I can't think of it.
Yeah.
24/7 Sports. I don't know.
Yeah, but something like that.
He recently had his show, and then also WFNZ. Sometimes I'm on there too.
Yep, 610 The Fan there in Charlotte. Greg, are you with us? No, look, maybe back out and try coming back in. Okay. All right, well, we'll move on. We'll start with the Panthers because they were the first game this week. What I have in my notes here is Panthers versus Cowboys, a Thanksgiving Day feast for Carolina. And I really think that's what it was. It's crazy to me how good the Panthers have been playing, how poorly the Cowboys have been playing. Romo comes back for a week, they win a game, and then when they come to match up against the Panthers, everybody's picking the Cowboys to beat the Panthers. Like overnight, the Panthers are going to somehow be intimidated or going to fall apart because Romo's back. And Romo is just going to be the savior that's going to come in and lead the Cowboys' cavalry and get them to win and lead them to the playoffs. I was just shocked at the amount of trash and just vomit that was spewing forth from Cowboy fans about how they were going to beat us. It was ridiculous. They had no basis for it. Well, why do you think that was the case, T-Money? Do you think they were just, they're so used to winning, they just expect teams to lay down for them?
I don't think it was that. I think it was they were more so excited and winning the game. You got to remember before that, they had lost, 7 straight?
Yeah, 7 in a row.
So
exactly.
I think they were so pumped up about Romo coming back and they were going to have a chance in the NFC East that They just let it. They just let themselves. They overhyped themselves. Like they really thought they were gonna win. It wasn't. No, you know how some teams they know they're gonna lose, but they still have to feel like they're gonna act like they're gonna win. Nah, they really thought they were gonna win.
Hmm. Greg, are you with us?
Well, I hope so.
Yes, yes, yes. We can finally hear you now. All right.
All right.
So what I was talking about, Greg, was how with on Thanksgiving Day the Panthers played the Cowboys and the Cowboys
Yeah.
got Romo back and they I think they had stopped. I think they won one game before playing the Panthers with Romo back.
Yeah.
And somehow him coming back in that one game had erased all the other problems they had with the previous seven. And the Cowboys fans just talking trash, and the pundits, these guys that supposedly know football, were talking about how expected the Cowboys to beat the Panthers despite how well the Panthers had been playing. And Team Money, his feeling was that the Cowboys really did think they could win. They came in the game expecting to win.
They did. They did. One, because they knew they had to. I mean, they had no choice. I mean, they got to come in there and they had to try to win that game. But when your quarterback throws a couple of pick sixes, that kind of changes things real quick.
It does
You
make
know,
it hard. That's
well,
for sure.
I mean, you throw two pick sixes. If any of us did it, if any of us threw, all of a sudden at that point in time, your confidence is
Shot.
really it's shot. I mean, I don't care who you are. You throw a couple of those at that point in time. Now you're figuring like, okay, maybe I don't have this fixed or have figured out what I thought I would and what I thought I had, and it just I mean their confidence was just shot on that after that, I think. And then you lose Romo later in the game, but at that point the game was out of reach anyway.
Right.
For Dallas, I think in that game it's just I mean it's a team that's played so badly, or not really so badly. It has a couple of close games here and there, but they just didn't have enough against the Panthers. I mean, like I said, the two pick sixes definitely didn't help them because, you basically gave 14 points away, like in no time.
To the defense. Right, to the defense. Not even the offense taking up, time and that sort of thing. It was just boom, and before you know it, your offense is back on the field. Team Money, what do you think after that interception and return by Coleman? What do you think was going through Romo's head, or how much did that deflate their hype, if you will, when they were coming out on the field?
I think it made him realize what he was saying after the game. It was that he was playing, but his mental, as far as being able to read the coverages and stuff, he wasn't back at that level yet.
Yeah, he wasn't missing. He kept missing the safety or linebacker that would roll over when he's getting ready to throw to the guy. He didn't see the guy coming over a couple times. And Coleman intercepted it like that, because the guy came over and then just took the ball. Same thing kind of with Kuechly. He threw it a little short. I think on Kuechly's second, I think.
Yeah. Kuechly just made a heck of a catch, man.
Oh, he did.
He looked like a tight end on that play.
I mean, pretty much ran the route for him.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's an interesting point that you made, T-Money, that he is kind of coming back from this injury. He did seem to me slower, like he was doing things, he was thinking about things more. Maybe it's because his shoulder hurt or, he really seemed to be, he was not a sharp quarterback by any means.
Well, you're out of the loop for 8 weeks. You know what I mean? And number two, you're dealing with probably one of the best it is one of the best defenses in the league.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who's better or who's worse or whatever, but absolutely one of the stoutest and one of the best defenses in the league. You're playing it out with plus coming back, pretty much out for 7 or 8 weeks. You can't tell me you're not gonna be a little tentative or a little worried. You're not worried a little bit about the rush. And, sometimes getting rid of the ball, not really reading the coverages thoroughly enough or whatever, So, I mean, he's trying to keep from getting sacked, but at the same time, he want to try to get the ball to his guy, and it just burned him.
Right. And Carolina is playing very good ball right now.
Oh, absolutely.
Do you think the fact that they failed to establish a running game really was the nail in the coffin for them?
Yeah, I
When they
mean,
got
I
rid of
said that
DeMarco
last
Murray, it
week
was the coffin.
too. I
Go
mean,
ahead, T Money. What was that?
that's what I was saying last week. I mean, the biggest thing in that Miami game was Darren McFadden ran for over 100 yards.
Mm-hmm.
And you're definitely not doing that on our defense. So
No.
Romo's already showed in the past when he doesn't have a running game with him how he's gonna look.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you put the onus on Romo, it seems a lot of times he not a lot of times, that's not right to say, but a fair number of times he chokes. A lot
But
of people beat Romo up over that, but I think, he doesn't do it all the time, but it's happened enough times where people want to put that moniker of being a choker on him, when I don't think that's necessarily
no,
fair.
but to be fair, any quarterback who doesn't have that running game, generally at least have that some element of it, really is. I mean, pretty much will run into the same problems he has. Very seldom. I mean, they'll win a game or two here and there where they may not have a running game, but they can't go 16 games or a full season and probably even be a playoff team without some semblance of a running game at certain times. I'm not saying you got to run 100 yards, but you got to
Right.
have those runs that you need to kind of keep the drive going and do certain things. I mean, you go third and fourth, you got to be able to have at least have a running game to be at least somewhat of a threat. You know what I mean? You just can't have a team where the defense can pin their ears back and know it's going to be a
Right.
pass.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's definitely the case. You have to at least have the threat of the run.
You got
You
to.
may not be able to do it every single running play, but you got to be able to at least threaten it. And speaking of running games, Aaron, I want to ask you this. It's a two-part question. Okay, the first part is, when Greg Hardy was a free agent, did you want him to make a move to the Falcons?
Not really, not with all the stuff that he went through off the field. It
Not
was
with the
kind of,
baggage.
yeah, and Greg Hardy's a great football player. I don't think that's undeniable. But all the sort of stuff that's happening over the last couple of months and sort of the backlash, you kind of saw this coming. Like it shouldn't shock anybody
No.
that based off of you know reports of him when he was at Ole Miss with,
Yep.
and then you hear things when he's in Carolina where he has this personality that strikes some people, rubs some people the wrong way, and then you go on top of that, he gets the whole legal issues, and then Dallas basically pays him all the money that they paid him,
Yeah.
and there's really just no sort of accountability on his part because he doesn't really have to be, because
Right.
he can do whatever he wants, and teams will pay him a lot of money. So, Greg Hardy certainly would have been a great addition to the Falcons if the Falcons had signed him, or really any team. But all the baggage that goes with them, it's just not really worth the
Right. It's
headaches.
more of a headache
Yeah, I agree.
than a benefit.
I totally agree.
So now that you've answered that way, Aaron, I'm not going to ask you the second part of this question. I'm going to ask Team Money and see what he thinks, because I'll be the first to say, being honest, I wanted Greg Hardy to stay in Carolina because of how good how good of a player he is. And now in hindsight, I look at that and I'm kind of embarrassed because, whatever allegedly or did or whatever happened between him and that young lady, it's a sad state of affairs for both of them. But he should have never ever, despite whatever claims there were, put his hands on her. And I'm sort of embarrassed for having, in a manner of speaking, defended Greg Hardy.
But
But what I want to ask you, T Money, is this: with Hardy's performance against the Panthers, were you surprised by how poorly he played, or did you expect him to play so poorly?
On one hand, I mean, the knock on Greg Hardy, even when we had him, is that he doesn't always show up in the biggest game.
Yeah.
Right.
Whether it's the playoff game or whether it's a game that we need to win, like that Atlanta game last year. So I wasn't that surprised. Besides the fact that our offensive line is pretty good. I
Yes.
know a lot of people didn't expect that. A lot of people still don't recognize it, but so I was kind of surprised, but kind of not. I expected them to at least get a tackle or something, at least show up in the defensive stat book.
Right.
But no sacks, no tackles,
Nothing.
no nothing. That was,
They might as well not even play.
yeah.
I mean,
I
really.
mean, the only time I remember seeing him on the field is when he missed Cam on that read option.
Hmm.
Yeah. But he also, remember, he came in there and said that basically the Panthers were a nameless, faceless team. And I kind of, when he said that, I was like, that's not a thing to say. Which, I mean, he's been doing that all year, where he's like said that dumbass thing that he, it was,
Well, I think that was knowing him from having him before. I don't think he meant it like that. I think he meant it as in,
I get it.
It's another
when
team.
players, yeah, it's just another game. I'm not going to overhype myself
Right.
I
about it.
totally get that. I know he didn't mean it like it said, but at the same point in time, you still gave the team enough fuel to turn it that way. It was still enough.
I think that was a media thing.
Because you got to remember, still coaches are just like politicians in their own way. You know what I mean? If you give them enough, they'll spin it to make it sound like the way they look. I mean, you got a 10-0 team, and we're gonna be nameless and faceless. I mean, if I'm, even if you
I don't think
you're gonna buy into it.
I don't think the team or Ron did, really. I think they just chalked it up as Greg being Greg. Whether it was the interviews I seen
I mean, yeah, but at the same time, it's still just a little bit more. It's still just a little bit more. Another reason to shut them out.
I think they were already hype enough off the whole being underdogs in the first place.
Yeah,
Right.
I never heard.
Right.
Which was dumb. Which was pretty dumb to me too, because I can't imagine an undefeated team going into, even if they're going into the home of a team that's 2-7, you can't, or 3-7, you can't. I mean, I don't see how you put them as an underdog in the first place. I mean, that was just. I mean, you were already pretty much leaving that team out there you put that team out there as a raw meat in my eye.
That was a slap in the face for sure. But I tend to agree with you, T-Money, in saying that the coaches really didn't necessarily, at least not to the point to where fans knew, use that line from what Greg Hardy said about nameless and faceless.
Even when they asked Ron about it, he was just like, hey, that means Greg's going to be focused. But even on because I watch their stuff that they do with the Panther stuff, but then I listen to them on their other stuff, or when they show up on Charlotte Vibe show or WFNZ, none of them mentioned it. Which Thomas Davis, when he was talking to Frank Garcia, he went more in depth on that, how they got us as underdogs. Like, that's really disrespectful to us. He never really mentioned Greg saying that at all. When Frank asked him, he was like, man, that's just Greg being Greg.
But I think the media did try to take it and spin it.
Yeah,
and try to make it make it something that it really wasn't. But it never really caught traction, thankfully.
Well, I mean, all I'm saying is that even with the coaches, even if it don't necessarily have an effect, you're still going to put it out there a little bit. They thinking of you. You're 10-0, and they thinking of you as nameless and faceless. Even if it's not enough motivation, because the motivation is to be 11-0. That's all what it comes down to, no matter who it is.
I see maybe the offensive line coaches like Matt Sco and maybe. I don't see really Ron doing that. But as an offensive lineman coach, you may say, hey, yeah.
Right. Well, yeah. Right. I mean, that's who I guess right there,
Yeah, so if anybody did, I'd probably say Masco and them guys. I don't think Ron was.
I really think I personally was surprised because I expected Greg Hardy to come out and play like he was trying to get all his money in one game, is what I was expecting. But he didn't. He came out and laid an egg, and that really surprised me. And I don't know if that's just because of how well
Well, you know they were giving him an excuse during the game, as they always do during the
Of
game.
course.
Saying he was having asthma attacks. And
Oh
he was
my God, I can't even believe that.
in the league how many years? I never knew Greg Hardy had asthma
Never
until.
heard it. Never heard it.
But yeah, they
Yeah.
said it during the game. Greg Hardy's late coming out the locker room. He was having an asthma attack. He had to take his inhaler. I was like, oh
Well, he
shit.
was using his nebulizer and getting treatments. And when you have kids, you only know what a nebulizer is.
Oh, I know. I know what it is.
um, but yeah, I think the Cowboys came out and got punched in the mouth, and were like, "Oh snap, we weren't ready for this." And the Panthers just stayed on top of them. And once the they were smacked in the face, the Cowboys were in shock the rest of the game. Josh Norman got right up in Dez's face. Did you hear what Josh Norman said after the game about Dez, Aaron?
No, I didn't. Fill me in.
Aaron, Dez and Josh Norman, right after the first play, got in each other's face. They weren't fighting, but you know they were throwing some verbal barbs at one another. Well, after the game, Josh Norman said that Dez Bryant should give back his $70 million contract because of how he was shut down by Josh Norman. And it was, funny, but at the same time, Josh Norman really did shut him down.
Yeah, he
He
said
really did shut him
Greg
down.
Norman said had a lot to say. He was talking about Dez actually. Dez actually was saying something, I guess, to the other defensive backs that was out there warming up. So he went on his talk about I had to go watch 300 real quick. I had to go in dark night mode and shut him down.
Yeah.
He was like, don't say nothing about the rest of my DBs, man. I was getting stressed out. I was chilling. You want to come in there? And they came in there and told me. So yeah, it was funny.
It was funny. He really, yeah, he did have a lot to say about that whole thing. Um, I guess the other point I want to make is Luke Kuechly. He is just unbelievable. He used to have, I would say, a weakness, or the weakest part of his game was his pass coverage. But he's worked and worked and worked on it, and he looked amazing in pass coverage, making that fantastic interception. That really set everything off. I think at that point the Panthers were there was no turning back. Cowboys were done. Anything else you want to add, T Money?
I guess just about Luke real quick. That first one was just pure Luke Kuechly film study. Because he
Yes.
did not know where that route was. Like he was chasing Witten up the field, and all of a sudden you just see him peel off and he catches it and he's gone. The
Hmm.
second one, that just showed his athleticism and his ability because he looked like a corner or a wide receiver or something out there running stride for stride with Witten and then to catch it over him. That
Right.
Kurt Coleman hit on Witten, I had to watch
Oh,
that
that
tape.
was nice.
I don't know how they didn't caught. How is it not unsportsmanlike conduct though?
Right. I
I
was
swear.
waiting on a flag. I was waiting on a flag. But thankfully they didn't throw one. Um, about the first interception, I did see them break that down, and you can see Luke backpedaling into his zone, covering his man, but then he turns his head and sees the outside receiver, because his man was the slot receiver. Outside receiver start cutting in to run like a square in, and you see Luke leave his man and start drifting over to where he's going to get right in front of the guy as the ball gets there. It was just, like you said, an incredible play made because of all the film study that he does. And the Panthers are on a roll right now. You know, we have the best record in the NFL in the month of December over the last like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I know it's us and then Belichick and Brady's up there.
Right. So, a lot of people think we're going to sort of start, trending downward, but December has all been our month. And
Yeah,
in the past, December has been our month. So I think we're only getting stronger. I mean, I don't want to stay on the Panthers too long. I think that's probably about everything we could say about them. They're looking really good right now. In my opinion, best team in football, despite Tom Brady and the Patriots. But we will move on to the Falcons. Um, Falcons can't stop the slide versus the Vikings.
At least
What
out of
was
all the
the?
losses, that was the one I least. I kind of knew was gonna happen.
You knew that they were going to lose.
Yeah. I mean, out of all of them that they've lost, that was the one that you would say, "Hey, yeah, they're probably gonna lose." It wasn't like losing to Blaine Gabbert.
Right, right, that's for sure. That is for sure. Your thoughts, Aaron? Go ahead and let us have it.
Yeah, I'm kind of with T Money on that one. When the schedule came out, I was like, oh, we got to play the Vikings. Yeah, that's probably going to be a loss. They match up pretty well with us because, you know, whatever Xavier Rhodes has had a down year this season, he does very good against Julio Jones,
Yeah.
similar to sort of Josh Norman.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, if you can take Julio Jones out of the equation in the Falcons offense, there's really not a whole lot else they're going to throw at you that's really going to challenge your defense, especially when you're a team as disciplined and as good as the Vikings defense is. They have playmakers at all three levels. So it was basically a game that I never really expected the Falcons to win. I know a lot of Falcon fans were sort of disappointed because the game was sort of winnable until the Falcons started turning the ball over.
That sounds like almost every Falcons loss this season.
Pretty much. So, I mean, it's not anything new. So it's just one of those things where the Falcons haven't been able to figure out, and I think basically early in the season, because Julio was so good that first month of the year, pretty much anytime their offense got into trouble, just throw it to Julio Jones and he'll bail them out. And then he got hurt, and he just hasn't been quite that difference maker since week 3, really. And their issue is they don't really have the supporting cast right now, particularly with Devontae Freeman being out last week, where they can really sort of get themselves out of sticky spots like they were earlier in the season. And it's one of those things where when they do turn the ball over like that and basically are missing opportunities in the red zone, it's pretty much a death knell for them because they don't really have the talent, I would say, to sort of dig themselves out of a hole quite yet.
Right. Let me say this. I saw a brilliant play. It was an absolutely beautiful play that the Falcons ran to absolute perfection. It was a toss sweep to Tevin Coleman, who followed his blockers, saw the alley, got through the alley, and just started looking. He was going full speed ahead. It was a great play. I mean, I was like, man, you can't draw it up any better. Here comes Anthony Barr from behind him. And this must have been a 40-yard run, maybe a 50-yard run.
Yes, 46.
And boom, he punches the ball out from behind him. So you see Coleman running, and then all of a sudden you see the ball shoot out in front of him. And Barr did the peanut punch from behind.
He's a heck of a player.
Yeah, he is. I agree.
Hell of a player.
That's just the kind of season that the Falcons have had this year. I thought, wow, that was a perfect summary for their season.
But it felt like deja vu because when did we see Coleman have a long run and fumble? The Saints game.
Right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. That's what I say. It's perfect, to talk about the season. They have those problems. Plus, they cannot, for whatever reason, when they get in the red zone, it seems that Matt Ryan just doesn't take care of the ball.
This year, I seen that.
I think missing Tony Gonzalez is a big problem there for them.
Yeah, but it's
I think the fact that you got to remember because when they were pretty dangerous when they had Gonzalez, and because he was that red zone threat, he was that short. That he was really that safety, that security blanket, and it's not there now. And I mean, you have to understand that. I think that with that offense right there, without that safety blanket, Matt Ryan looks really, really different. Especially the fact that
You
Roddy
gotta remember,
White is on the way out, and then you got just Julio. Hankerson is so-so.
an
It,
injury
it,
prone.
Yeah.
it's just not enough there.
Look, Matt Ryan has been a quarterback in this league for 8 years. Okay, and Greg and Gonzalez has not been there in at least what 3 years. Aaron, is that right?
2013. Yeah,
Two,
2013 was his last year.
Okay, so 2 years going on 3 years. You got to move on, man. I mean, Matt Ryan should be at the point now where he can find another receiver, but he
Well,
really is struggling.
you got a 6'8" Tololo. I don't understand how you don't.
But really, should we expect that? If you really remember Matt Ryan at his root, Matt Ryan is a game manager. You remember they only opened the offense up when they traded all them picks to get Julio because you had to.
Right.
And at that point, you had Julio, you had Roddy White in his prime, you had Tony Gonzalez, and you had Harry Douglas.
Yeah.
You can go out there and throw to one of them.
Right. And then you get rid of Harry Douglas.
Yeah, you lose Harry Douglas after you lost Tony Gonzalez, who you never replaced.
Yeah.
Levine Tololo they been knew that was a problem.
But with Tololo, I mean, to a point where coaching got to take over and the coach got to develop the guy. Even if you got to he's 6'8". Even if you get a couple of routes that he just normally will run at 6'8", you seem like to me you would still be able to use him in an 8 to 10 yard range. You know what I mean?
I think that, but he can't catch for one. And then like last year, they were so hurt on the offensive line. Remember, he was playing tackle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you've had two summers to throw 3,000 balls to that son of a bitch until he catches everything. Until you know what I'm saying? I mean, you sit there in the summer. He don't take a summer off. He take that summer. He don't do nothing but throw stuff. You throw
machine
or whatever bottles.
Yeah.
You got to catch everything until he learns to actually catch. I mean, catching is not necessarily genetic. You can catch. I mean, anybody can learn to catch if they want to catch.
No, I watch the Panthers practice, and I see Ted get on that jug machine every day.
You're right.
All right, here we go. Let me ask Aaron this.
It's still a learned action. You can still learn to catch.
Let me ask you this, Aaron. Or I should say it this way, has Matt Ryan always been a game manager that for a few seasons had some excellent talent at his disposal? And since that talent is gone, we are seeing the true nature of the quarterback.
I feel like it's always a negative thing when you call someone a game manager. I think, I feel like if you put when you compared Matt Ryan to different quarterbacks, if you put Tom Brady on one end of the spectrum and then Alex Smith on the other end of the spectrum.
Okay.
I think earlier in Matt Ryan's career, because he had weapons to throw to and he had reliable guys that he could go to and trust would go make the play, he was probably closer to Tom Brady on that end of the spectrum.
That's fair enough.
But now that you've taken those things away, you've had him take a lot of hits over the last couple of years behind some bad offensive lines. You're giving him a bunch of new receivers that he doesn't really have a great rapport with.
You're right.
And it's basically now he's more closer to the Alex Smith level. And I think with the Falcons particularly, they tried to experiment with Matt Ryan having bad receivers and trying to elevate them back in 2013 when Julio went out. And the Falcons thought, Roddy White's going to come back from his injury, but Roddy White missed another month. And so there was basically a month where Harry Douglas was the number one receiver, and they had a bunch of journeyman guys that none of them are in the league anymore 2 years later.
Yeah.
And Matt Ryan really struggled. And Harry Douglas, while he had a great productive season on the box scores, if you go back and you watch some of those games where he was the number one guy, he didn't do anything for 3 quarters, and when the Falcons were down 2 or 3 scores late in the game, he would, get some garbage time stat padding, and so it made people think Harry Douglas was a lot better than what he was. And so Matt Ryan, during that stretch of time, he threw a bunch of interceptions, and you kind of see the same things happening now. And I think what we've learned is that Matt Ryan is a guy that needs good receivers. He's not a guy that's going to take a Philly Brown and a Ted Ginn and make them look serviceable. He's a guy that needs a Julio Jones. He needs a Roddy White in his prime. He needs a Tony Gonzalez. And the Falcons with Hankerson and Tammy and those guys who are fine NFL players just aren't good enough to sort of allow Matt Ryan to play his best football.
Okay. I think that's very fair. I think what you said is very fair, and I think it's true. But my question to you then is this. With this being the case, like you said, you've got one outstanding receiver, and the rest are just average receivers. And you've got a heck of a run game that was extremely effective at the beginning of the year when you were 5-0. And now you're on a 7-game slide or something like that.
4 out of 5.
Right.
5 out of 6
losses.
5 out of 6. Yeah.
Then
pretty much they've been looking bad since that Texans game.
Then why have you? Then to me, the problem is why did you stop running the ball? Because you were doing a great job of it. I mean, what's his name had stepped up and taken the league by storm. And then Coleman, you drafted Coleman, and he came in and he was playing well. So you stopped doing what you were doing most effectively. You can't expect to win.
The coaching staff doesn't have a realistic viewpoint of Matt Ryan. They think Matt Ryan, to me, is better. They think Matt Ryan is on that Breeze level of you can stick anybody in there, he's going to do work. Because even when Freeman was balling, it was never like they were running 30, 25 times a game. It was more Freeman might have 12 attempts, but he done busted 2 of them for a 50-yarder or a 60-yarder.
Mm-hmm.
I never really seen like they were, even on 3rd and 1, they were still like the Tennessee game. Freeman was helping. Remember that was a game they were passing on 3rd and 1 like 5 times in a row.
Yeah.
I don't think they ever, even though Freeman's been balling, I don't think they ever really wanted to hand him the keys to the offense.
Well, I think part of it is a lot of these games, other than that Colts game, they've been behind early in games. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it has to do with turnovers early in games. Yeah. And so they've been a little quick to abandon the running game in some of those games. But really the last couple, is like against the 49ers before the bye week, Freeman was shut down. Basically, Navarro Bowman, every time Freeman got the ball, handed the ball off, Navarro Bowman was right there to tackle him. Mm-hmm. And then against the Colts, Freeman got hurt on the first series of the game, and Coleman just was the rest of the game. And this past week, Freeman was out. And Coleman did a pretty good job, but obviously he had that big fumble. Yeah. Had he, hung on to the ball, and then he had a touchdown wiped off the board where the Falcons could have taken the lead on a sort of phantom clipping call. So I think I don't think the Falcons have abandoned the running game, but I think certain circumstances have caused them to be a little quick to pull them in a lot of these game situations.
Yeah, I was going to say, because, if you're only behind 7-10 points and you're early in the game, first, second quarter, is it really a reason to abandon your game plan right away? You know what I mean? I know what you're saying. You're saying they're throwing the ball right at the point they maybe panic a little bit and start throwing the ball a little more instead of running it, and just really kind of running their game plan regardless. So maybe that's something that they need to talk to about with Shanahan, that they don't make that.
The games. How many times are you gonna let Matt Ryan throw red zone interceptions?
Yeah, that's the thing for me. You see, this is not just a random event. This is a pattern. It's not random. It's a pattern.
Even at the beginning of this, Atlanta not playing that well, we always been hearing, okay, even from the fans, the team, everything, we're gonna fix it. You've been having the same issue all year. Turnover, a pass rush that doesn't get there, that's not sacking quarterbacks, even when they do get pressure. You've been having that problem all year. Like, you're running out of time, man.
Right. And I guess I want to ask you this, Aaron, because I think this may be a good point. Can any of this go on Coach Quinn being a first-year head coach?
I guess it can. Yeah, I mean, I think coaches can get better. It's not when I think there's always this perception that coaches are finished products when they arrive to a certain city. Like
Yeah.
you take Ron Rivera for example. I was a very big, I guess, critic of Ron Rivera earlier in his tenure, but I do think you can look at Ron Rivera's time in Carolina, and I think he's a significantly better coach than he was 4 years ago. And I think maybe some of that is Dan Quinn, being a little new and not knowing how to motivate and not knowing how to, do the things that he needs to do to get them out of this funk, and players like not, the Falcons had a players only meeting this past week, I guess basically to, try to light each other's fires or whatnot. So, I mean, it's one of those things where if they can't get it done this week against the Bucs, which basically every time I've been on the show, I basically said the same thing. If they don't get it done this week, when are they going to get it done? So, I mean, this is basically a playoff elimination game right here. They've lost the last two games. They've pretty much completely obliterated their sort of margin for error for making the playoffs. And so, really, at this point, if they lose this week, then it's a wrap on their playoff chances. And basically, they're only playing for pride. Well, it's not the season's over, but it's just you're just playing for pride at that point.
Right.
See, I personally disagree with that whole point about Dan Quinn because I think, to me, like I told the Panther fans with Ron, that first year, because you're coming in with somebody else's roster, your specialty, whatever they brought you in for, has to be really good or really better than it was before, which he's done that. Their defense went from being, bottom 2, bottom 3, something like that, to now 11th in the league.
Yeah.
So he's done his part. I think where the drop-off is the roster, which, I mean, even when they were 5-0, I was telling people they have an average roster. Like, they're winning. Yeah, they're coming back in the fourth quarter, but they were never dominating anybody.
No.
So I think that's the issue, which that comes from, all the bad years of Dimitrov drafting. And then I think the other thing is Shanahan. Shanahan is really coming off as, arrogant. We don't have to throw to anybody but Julio. I heard him say that the other day. I know y'all saying that we need to do this, we need to do that. No, we can throw it to Julio on every play. Who says that? That's stupid.
Yeah.
You set somebody off, a veteran who's probably the best receiver to ever come out of Atlanta. He's got to be in the top 3, Roddy White. You're making a guy I've never heard of him do anything like demanding the ball. I've never heard it as long as Roddy White's been a Falcon fan. But he's got to do that this year. I feel like if anybody's a problem, it's Shanahan.
He's an offensive coordinator.
Well, that's the thing that a lot of people are saying. I think, Shanahan's the type of person that he kind of rubs people the wrong way. He's done that wherever he's been.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of one of those things where he's an easy scapegoat. He's an easy target because he's not afraid of painting that target on his back. I think part of it has been the team has basically thrown some Band-Aid solutions at some of the holes in the roster the last couple of years, particularly wide receiver and tight end. Falcons really didn't draft any receivers at all prior to this year. They drafted 2 in the last 6 years, which is a very, very low number. I think the average NFL team drafts a wide receiver every year. And obviously they really basically ignored the tight end position for about 5 years, waiting, I guess, thinking Tony Gonzalez was going to play forever. And I think those solutions haven't really worked out. And I think, Shanahan, people have complained a lot because Matt Ryan has been mostly effective playing a lot of no huddle in the past years. And Shanahan really hasn't done a whole lot of that with him. He did some of it against the Colts, and it seemed to be effective, and then kind of went away from it against the Vikings. So Shanahan deserves a lot of criticism, but I don't think the Falcons' offense has dropped off as much as people make it out to be. I think really they're kind of the same as what they were last year, offensively, minus the turnovers. The only difference is last year people ignored the offensive problems because the defense was so terrible, and it was just easy to blame everything on the defense is why the team was struggling.
Right.
And now that the defense is actually competent and keeping them in games, now the offensive struggles seem a lot more, apparent.
Right, more prominent. They're showing themselves more.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I like what you said there, T Money, about Shanahan. It seems that him and his dad are very good at rubbing people the wrong way and coming off as arrogant. Um,
But the
I would say,
difference is Daddy got Super Bowls.
right, his dad definitely has championships. Yes.
Yeah.
Dad, and you haven't really. I mean, what have you done? You quarterback Brian Hoyer and John Manziel. Yay!
Right. So, Aaron, what do the Falcons do this week to get the win against the Bucks?
Do everything they haven't done the last couple of weeks.
So that first of all, it
Not
means running the ball.
Yeah, Devontae's supposed to play this week, so that should be a big boost. They need to not turn the ball over. They need to not let Gerald McCoy dominate the interior of their offensive line. They need to get some big plays on offense, which they did not get at all. They threw like one deep pass against the Bucks back in Week 8, and they need to get pressure on Jameis Winston and really, make him look like a rookie quarterback because Jameis is playing well for a rookie, but there's always a couple of throws in every game where you're like, ooh, if he hit that throw, like that Bucks offense would be, really, really good. But there's always like 2 or 3 throws that he misses that, and I think
when I'm watching that game, I say if Mike Evans would have caught that, I swear.
Wow, a lot of the time that is the case.
that's a fair thing. That's a fair statement.
Evans.
Okay, so I would agree. I think getting pressure on the quarterback is a big thing. I think Freeman coming back and being able to run, if you guys run the ball maybe 25, 30 times, I think that would do you really well. And then you could really use the play action pass at that point. And that's when you can go to Julio, go deep with Julio and put up some impressive stats. But if you don't establish any type of run, it's going to be more of the same. Tampa's been playing. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and the other thing is Devin Hester's coming back. He's coming off IR this week. And Falcons are desperate when they're really counting on Devin Hester to be so it's like, I don't know what he's going to do on offense, but it's like if he can get one touchdown on special teams, that would be huge.
Might be enough.
Yeah.
It might be enough.
All right, but my question real quick for Aaron. Do you think it's more of Julio still not being all the way Julio yet, or y'all just choosing not to throw it deep? Because I've been noticing that for a minute anyway, that y'all haven't really been throwing it deep.
I think it's a little bit. I think they're not throwing it deep. I think ultimately there's really no excuse to not throw it deep. Like you can make excuses, but it's like you can still throw it deep. You can still have guys run deep routes and have those 5 and 7 step drops and throw the ball down the field.
Yeah.
So I think it's more of a choice. I think there's other factors into it, but it's ultimately at the end of the day they can throw it deep a lot more than they have.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to. That's going to be a good game. I definitely want to catch what I can of that game. I know the Panthers are on at the same time. I'm pretty sure.
Nah, we got flex after.
Oh, we flexed after.
We play at 4:25 on Sunday.
Yeah, 4:25.
Yeah.
Nice.
We already clinched the division without playing.
Right. That's good. Then I'll be able to watch both games. And that's kind of where we're going to go next. We don't have a whole lot of time, but I definitely want to touch on the Saints because the Texans put it on them this past week. And what's that?
I can make this really simple. Don't worry.
Okay.
It won't take long.
All right. 24-6, I believe, was the score. First time since 2005 that the Saints have not scored a touchdown in a game. I think that's a pretty impressive stat. Texans they're trending upward, I think. They've been playing better as of late. But the Saints, not so much. They fired their defensive guy, which should have been fired at the end of last year, but they fired him in the middle of the season, brought over, what was his name?
Dennis Allen.
Dennis Allen. He's there now, and We didn't see any improvement, I don't think, from the defense.
Early,
So,
early in the game, yeah, because early in the game, the first two drives, yeah, pretty much the Texans went right down and scored. Just simple as that. They made a couple stops here and there later on. I mean, it, whoop de doo to a point because the offense at this point, I'm more concerned right now because the fact that the offense is not out there to. They could have mashed the Texans. I thought if the offense played better, they definitely could have mashed the Texans. Because you think about it, the defense had them 24 points. If the defense had played, if the defense were much worse, they probably would have scored 40 on them. You know what I mean? So the defense had to make some stops in there, but then the offense could not do anything with the ball themselves. I mean, they had an interception against Hoyer that Juris Bird made.
first one since he's been
Yeah,
in New Orleans, $54 million interception.
yeah, he got an interception. But still, they were pretty much right there in like Texas territory. Didn't
hmm
do a damn thing with it. And right now, a lot of his centers, I think, the last two games, both Washington and Houston, centered around a lot around the offensive line. The offensive line is not playing well at all. They're not really giving Breeze time to get the ball to the receivers and all this too. So I think that's a real big part of it. So they got to figure out an overhaul on that line.
It tells you something.
I think the only ones that are two things are Armstead and Unger. Everybody else is up for grabs. They can go.
What were you going to say, T-Money?
I was saying, yeah, it's pretty bad when you still reshuffling the offensive line this late in the year. Cause I think they let Pete start last week.
They let Pete start at guard. Right, they let Pete start at guard. And yeah, that is bad because when you had Tim Lolito there all those times, and then even in the Washington game, they were alternating him and Senio Clemente, his backup, and then they turn around and they bring in Pete as the next one. So you already can tell right then and there that. The only thing I can give it to Payne, he's not afraid to try things. You know what I mean? At least he's not going to leave it status quo. He's going to try something.
Well, I suppose that's a positive.
You know what I'm saying? And I got it, and that's thinking with the cut, with some of the people he cut and some of the things he did. A lot of people were mad about it. But
I don't think he's doing it to make y'all better. I think he got to look like he's doing something for his next. I've been saying it for a while. I think he auditioning for his next job right now.
Maybe so. And like I said, it could very well be the case. It could very well be the case. Only thing I can say is that it's hard to. He probably is. He probably is. And like I said, if he doesn't want to be there, please, that's fine. He can go.
Yeah.
And that's all I can. That's all you can do about it. Don't get me wrong. It was a good 10-year run. That's awesome, and we just have to find another coach. So that's fine. What all I want them to do is just to be able to actually make an effort to really do something to try to make the team better. Because I think making the team go 5-11, 4-12, is not going to necessarily look as good on Payton as it would if Payton makes the team at least go 7-9 or 8-8.
Yeah.
Say that. You know what I'm saying? Because at least if he comes at the end of the year and he got them really rolling and got them at a 5 or 6 game win streak, a 4 or 5 game win streak here. At the end of the year, he's going to look a lot more appealing to other coaches or to other teams. Other owners. They can look at him going 4-12. Huh?
If he went 7 or 9, 8-8, you would just say, hey, they would do the most to keep him at that point.
Right. I think so too.
They got a 2-year contract, so he's theirs anyway for a couple more years.
Right.
He's there anyway, at least another year, if not 2 more years. I think it's like right about 2 years. So he's still there. He's still theirs anyway. So it's not like he's a free agent after this year is over with. So if anybody wants him,
it's always a different vibe when you're that coach that's been on top and they already kind of iffy on you. Once you finally had that bad year, that's when, like San Francisco, they felt like they were in the right because after all that time, you couldn't fire Harbaugh after going to the NFC Championship game.
Yeah,
You had to wait until he had one off year, and then that's when you already were kind of iffy on him, and now you just.
But that's the thing. I don't think the organization itself is iffy on Payton. The only thing they may be worried about is the fact that maybe he does want to leave. So that may be the situation that maybe they get the inkling that he does want to leave, or they're hearing this. Like I said, for me, I just think that as far as I'm concerned, you know what? If we go 4-12, that's fine. You know what? We just have to get a high draft pick and do our thing and get a new coach or whatever we got to do. I mean, we still got a lot of holes on the team that need to be filled. We still have a lot of new people, that still need to. We have to see really where they are and everything else. So I mean, if Peyton's if he's gonna be there to see it through, I'm fine with that. If he's not gonna be there to see it through, I'm just gonna be fine with that. Like I told you, when I walked into the season, I didn't know what to expect because especially when you turn over almost half the roster. I mean, I can't expect playoffs, but also at the same time, I can't expect 2-14 either. You know what I mean? I figured it had to be some little bit. I know what they were trying to do, but so if it's Peyton's last year, that's cool. I mean, it is what it is. All I want to do is I just want to see. I just want to see just some semblance of effort. Just do your damn job at this point in time until the end of the year. When the end of the year comes, wherever the smoke clears, however it turns out is however it turns out.
There's a lot. There's a lot going on, not only with the team and the coaching, but with the organization, the front office,
ownership, and everything.
There's all kinds of stuff that's going on there.
And I think that's the issue right there of Peyton wanting to leave. Of maybe if he's looking to leave, the only reason he's looking to leave, really, to me, is not because of the players, not because of Mickey Loomis, not because of any of that. It's just a matter that we know Tom Benson in his 80s. He's close to the end of his life. He's trying to see whether his judge going to either is going to have the granddaughter run his team, or is it going to be the wife. If the wife is running the team, he gets along very well with her, and everybody likes her, and that will be fine. But if the granddaughter runs the team, she's an absolute terror from what everybody said. I mean, I've read stories on the lady. She's an absolute terror. Peyton don't want any part of that, and I get that. I mean, I wouldn't want to work for somebody I can't stand either. Because I'm the hell out of there. If I can't stand you, I'm done. I'm out of there. So I get his point. At the same time, it's just all I'm saying is at this point in time, they just can't let that affect them. They got to really go out there and just at this point play the next 5 games as best you can.
Well, I think especially on the defensive side of the ball, they're talent deprived. I mean, honestly,
and not really, because the one big thing they said with Rob Ryan, the biggest issue was they were sloppy. They were really, really sloppy. And what I'm saying in the sense of as far as he's not as organized, he really didn't have a lot of times he didn't know exactly. They always had issues with the players not really knowing some of the calls or knowing exactly what to do and certain things like that. So I don't know if it's much talent.
I don't know how you can all blame it on Rob though, because I mean defense wasn't.
Nobody's all blaming Rob. I mean, don't get wrong. Some areas we are talent deprived. I still think in the linebacker department, I still think we still definitely not even close to where we need to be in linebacker department. We got Anthony, we got Kaha. We have to see what Davis Tull, who's on IR right now. He's a rookie. See where he really has. Other than that, everybody else really can go.
You have Bobby Richardson up front, don't you, on the line?
Who's decent, but not a terror. We don't, I mean, like, we still in the draft. We still got to look for that. Pretty much, I mean, every defense is looking for that guy who's that type of Bruce Smith that you're looking for that. You look for that guy that everybody got to worry about on defense. You know what I mean? As far as I mean, the Falcons had it with John Abraham at one time when Abraham was pretty much a very strong pass rusher.
Mm-hmm.
And you're looking for that type of guy. The Saints don't really have that guy. Jordan can be on and off here and there, but we're talking about that guy that everybody always got to worry about. So you still need that pass rush. You still need a good pass rush. You still need to get the middle of the defensive line fixed. You got to get more linebackers. You got to get better linebackers. You got to get. I mean, even with the backs, defensive backs, you got to shore that up a little bit more still.
Well, in the DBs, that you have a failure in the experiment of what's his name that came from
Brandon Brown.
Yes, that's a failure.
It is a failure.
And then, I think it was a $54 million waste of money you had in bringing Bird down, who has been injured for 2 of the 3 years he's been there.
Right, and that's the biggest problem. It's more he injured than more than his play, because the problem and don't get me wrong, part of his, you're right, he's not there. That's
if he's not playing, it's a waste of money.
No, At first, I had with Jerry Burns. I gave up like 500 passing yards to Atlanta.
Yeah, right. And we did the first game, yeah. But I mean, that was like as a defense as a whole to a point too. I'm not saying Jarrisburg is like the one person who going to make that defense either one better necessarily. I mean, you still need everybody else because they had a lot of guys on that.
That's why I don't know how Mickey Loomis get a pass with y'all.
I know. I agree.
Well, I mean,
let me tell you what I found out. I found out that Mickey Loomis is the GM for the Saints, but he's also the GM for the Pelicans.
Yeah, I knew that. Pelicans, yeah, I'm aware.
So did you know what he did? He went and brought over Jeff Ireland to give him a hand because Loomis is not a football guy. Loomis is a numbers guy.
Yeah,
he's good with contracts and salary caps and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So he brought over Ireland to help him with the football side of things.
I mean, that's been known for years. Everybody's known that for years.
Hold up. Mickey Loomis is good with salary cap. What they just like $30 million over the salary?
I'm just telling you what I was told by a Saints fan.
So what he's supposed to be good at, he ain't good at Jimmy Graham because he had no money.
Right, and he obviously doesn't have an eye for talent because he cut Jimmy Graham. Now, I will say this. There's a few things on the Saints that I do like. First of all, Stephon Anthony. I think you got something that could end up being a really good player there.
Yes.
Kenny Vaccaro he would be a superstar in the right type of defense.
Agreed.
But that's it. Maybe Bobby Richardson. I think he's got some potential.
I think Kaha is another kid that can actually be a lot better because he's he's more a pass rusher. They're trying to make him
never gonna be
all that. I think he's a lot better than people. They think he's a lot better also.
In my opinion, get rid of everybody else. Keep those two, maybe three guys, but everybody else is trash.
He's good in the role, but he's never gonna be a starting caliber type of dude. He don't have the right body type to do it.
Who?
What's the Hawaiian?
Right, no, but I mean, even if you use them as a pass rushing specialist to come in on third down, something like that in certain roles. I'm not saying necessarily every down, but I still think that he can still fit in.
But you don't take backups in the early rounds. You took Pete in what?
Right.
Pete probably be starting next year, or because I mean, I think Struth is down.
You switch his position from what he got drafted for anyway.
Well, no, because they put him at guard at that point, so I think they just wanted to get him out there.
All right. Aaron Freeman, you have been quiet for the most part during this whole conversation, sir.
It's fun to listen to another team complain about bad personnel.
You've seen. I mean, our last 4 or 5 drafts have been brutal because, especially even last year's draft, we got like 2 people left out of that whole draft,
right.
And that's like I think Brandon Coleman and I forgot who the hell else is on the team still on from that draft. I mean, the 13 draft was the same way. So the last 4 or 5 drafts have been brutal. So they really have drafted bad. Part of the reason they brought Ireland in because some of the stuff he did more at Dallas instead of what he did in Miami. Because he wasn't a GM, he was more or less like a talent guy in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
He brought in guys like DeMarcus Ware and some of these other guys. And like with this draft, a lot of the guys stayed. They didn't cut anybody. I mean, they got a couple of guys, P.J. Williams and Tull, who are on IR, and they got some other guys who are playing or not, maybe somewhat injured, like Swan and some of the other guys. I mean, like I said, all I'm saying is that, as far as the talent, as far as their scouting department, they actually gutted the whole scouting department. And
that was a good move.
Bunch of new guys in there. They had to.
All right. Well, I think we can all agree that out of our division right now, as it stands, the Saints are the worst team. And I'm not dogging you particularly, Greg. I'm just saying if you look at the talent and the records, it's going to show that the Saints are the worst team.
Right now, yeah.
Right now.
Right now it is.
We can only judge by up to this point in the season.
Oh, I mean, of course, absolutely, and I'm not taking offense to that.
Yeah, please don't, because I don't mean it in
No.
offensive way.
I'm not taking offense to that because it is what it is. I mean, it is what it is. A lot of the stuff, chickens come home to roost at a certain point when things go wrong, and it happens. It happened with us. I mean, It's happened to a point with the Falcons. It happened to a point with
The Panthers have been terrible before.
yeah, and everything. You get a couple of bad drafts. You get sign up a couple of bad free agents. I mean, you can easily end up being in this situation. So I mean, that's what happened. So they still got a lot of reworking to do.
Well, we're running over here. We're about 10 minutes over. So real quick, I want to get a couple of picks from people. I'm going to start with you, Aaron, since you've been the quietest and haven't really said much here lately. You are playing the Bucs this weekend, and like you said, it has, for you, your playoff hopes are riding on this game. I think it's a good battle between two fairly matched teams, and I'm very interested to see this. What do you see the score of this game being, of the one coming up between the Falcons and Bucs?
Well, I think it's probably going to be a low-scoring game. So I'm looking at probably like 20-17 sort of game. But I'll pick the Falcons, but I think it's basically a coin flip who's going to win this game. I'm going to be a little bit of a homer and pick the Falcons, even though there's really
no shame in that game, brother.
Yeah, so there's no logical reason to pick the Falcons, but I'm just going to do it because this will probably be the last time I get to. I mean, I'm definitely not going to pick them next week, so I mean, might as well pick them now. So
right. I think that, like you said, it's a coin flip. This game can go either way. It depends on turnovers and who can be the most secure with the football. It is in Atlanta, right?
No, it's in Tampa Bay.
It is in Tampa Bay. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I don't know who to go with in that case.
It's okay. You can pick the Bucs.
It's a coin flip. No, and really, I don't know who to go with. You just wonder which version of which team is going to show up.
Right. Because I mean, both. I mean, well.
What do you think? What do you think, Greg? Who wins that game?
Right now, you almost would think logically it'd be Tampa in this game, but also Tampa is also known to at times, I think if it's a close game, it definitely can go either way. If it stayed tight, one wrong, like you said, a turnover, a ref's call, could be a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Jameis protects the football better than Matt Ryan has this season. So if it's a close game, then
Jameis has tossed a couple of interceptions over the last couple of weeks. I mean, and they had a rough game against the Colts. They didn't play very well.
They didn't play very good in that game. You're right.
They didn't play very well in that game at all. And so a lot of as far as the Bucs fans were talking about the referee calls on it, and I mean, maybe not, but at the same time.
So you got a score, Greg?
But I'm gonna lean Bucs. I'm gonna say Bucs 17-14 maybe.
Okay. What do you think, T-Money?
Aaron, what did I say about picking the Falcons?
Man,
what did I say about picking the Falcons?
I don't know, man. What did you say?
After they lost to Blaine, I said I ain't picking them no more. I don't care. It's red. I'm not picking them no more. Ever.
So I guess we can go ahead and assume you're picking the Bucs.
Yeah.
You have a score?
24-17.
24-17?
I think it's better for the Bucs that they lost last week because
A little more motivated this week.
Really win consecutive games anyway.
Right.
So I think they lost last week.
All right, well, I'm not going to let myself cop out and say a coin flip. I'm going to go with Atlanta. And I'm saying Atlanta because if it comes down to it, I like my chances with Atlanta's kicker better than I do the Bucs kicker.
Ain't Matt Bryan still hurt?
Yeah,
no, I think he's supposed to play this week.
Yeah, you just signed Shane Graham.
I think Brian's supposed to play this week, so I think we'll be all right.
Well, I'm gonna say it's gonna be a low-scoring, ugly game, and I think it'll be 13-10 Atlanta.
You should have said that's something that tells you about Atlanta season. Didn't Matt Bryan miss a kick this year?
Didn't
Matt Bryan miss a game-winning kick this year?
He did.
Yeah, he's been a little off.
This year, he has been this year.
Because his percentage
Well,
is what,
yeah,
90 something?
I thought he was money mad.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's
he
always
was
money mad.
till this year.
He's more
Uh,
like spare change Matty now.
I've
um,
never been cool with Matt Bryant ever since he did that whole. Remember when we beat them? I think it was like towards the end of the year he did that game on the field. No, that was Matt
Yeah,
Ryan.
that was Matt Ryan, yeah. Yeah, that was Matt Ryan. But yeah, ever since then, I could care less about him too. All right, so the other game this week is another division game, Panthers Saints. And Greg, I'm going to start with you. What do you see the outcome of this game being?
well, you know, as much as I mean, it's hard to not think that the Panthers won't win the game.
Right.
In all honesty, but I mean, I'm definitely going to be rooting for the Saints, and
Sure, of course.
I'm much like Aaron. As much as I really don't necessarily feel like there's a lot of hope. If they can stay close, maybe. So I got to play the homer on it. You know what I mean? Because I'm damn sure
Okay.
I'm damn sure not gonna be rooting for the Panthers.
I understand that.
It just can't happen. You know what I mean? We gotta go down. We just gotta go down.
So you're hoping for a few turnovers by the Panthers. You're hoping that Drew Brees.
Calls. Maybe Cam decide he wants to take a couple of quarters off.
Yeah.
And,
And Drew Brees hits Ben Watson for some catches at 140 yards. Like we've seen it happen. He's done that a couple times this year.
The last game they played with Luke McCown, I mean the Saints stayed pretty close in that
They
game.
did.
And they actually, I mean, they had a solid, decent game plan, short
They did.
and everything like that. On Payne, I think you still kind of take a cue from that and try to do sort of the same thing right now, especially with your offensive line not having issues as they are. Don't let those guys, don't let those guys have to block for a long period of time.
All right, so give me a score.
Give you a score?
Yeah.
All right. More likely, it's probably gonna be like 31-17 Panthers. But if the Saints win, we're talking 24-21 Saints. I mean, like a last-second field goal.
Very close.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Either you guys gonna run away with it, or if it stays close, the Saints will win it. Yeah, we ain't blowing you out.
Right. Aaron, what do you think of the Saints Panthers matchup?
Well, I feel like everything in me is telling me this is going to be another Panthers blowout. So I should say like Panthers 34 to like Saints 17 or something like that. But I feel like because I think that I'm going to be wrong, and because it's a divisional game, and maybe because of the layoff that the Panthers have had, and because maybe they just start a little slower than they usually do or something like that, it might be a little bit more competitive, and the Panthers would wind up getting it together in the end and win it like 28-24 or something like that.
Wow, if the game is that close, I will be nervous. What do you think, T-Money? I know I got an idea of what you're gonna say.
Well, first of all, out of that list that you gave, I think the first thing is Brandon Browner needs to read the NFL rule book so he can know what defensive holding and defensive pass interference is. But of course, the Panthers are going to win. Even last year, I think against them, y'all got on me for that. But what's going to be the score? Usually late in the year, we usually run the ball on them. You have a 20-yard game or something crazy. I think their defense is better than last year. Yeah, a little bit. So I'm going to say 35-7.
So you think a blowout. That's a pretty good stomping by 28 points.
Yeah.
I mean, we weren't
all that last year when we beat them 41-10.
Yeah, I see this game being a blowout. I think maybe it's competitive for a quarter, but then the defense is going to get to Breeze. There's going to be some turnovers. Cam's going to get rolling. And I see this game being somewhere, I'm going to say like 37-10. somewhere around there. It's going to be pretty good size win.
Yeah, I don't even know in the first quarter. I think we'll have a turnover by the end of the first quarter.
Right. Well, okay, maybe close. It may be competitive for a few minutes then. But yeah, I think the Panthers are just hot right now, guys. You know, the Panthers are rolling. They're very confident, but they're not cocky, and they're really having this team sort of theme running amongst them. Is they're doing this for the guy beside them. They're doing this for the guy behind them. They really are playing as a team. I want to thank you guys for joining me tonight on the show. It was a really fly by the seat of your pants episode, but you guys did a great job, and I appreciate it. Gene will be back with us next week, he says, and I look forward to seeing you guys again. Aaron, if you'll let people know where they can reach you out on Twitter.
I'm at Falcon Fans on Twitter. Please check out the Falcon Fans podcast on falconfans.com. Episode came out today. Another episode will come out tomorrow. Please check out Falcon Central Radio on the Pro Football Central Radio Network on ProFootballCentral.com. That's the one I do with Scott Karasik. And we had a couple of good episodes this week, so please check those out.
Yes, Scott Karasik, former Southbound and Down representative of the Falcons. He does know his stuff about the team. That's a great show those guys do. If you're a Falcons fan, you certainly want to catch it. Greg, you didn't get to tell us about yourself earlier. So let us know where you can be reached at on the Twitter.
Well, you can catch me at IntenseGB on Twitter, of course, anytime. I'm always around. So definitely, feel free to follow me or just say hello. We're good to go there. Pretty much, of course, I write for Cat Chronicles and covering the AFC North and also doing the weekly rankings as well.
Yes, he does. He's been he's been great helping us maintain that all throughout the season. Certainly last but certainly not least, we do have Mr. T Money 1993. If you would be so kind as to let them know where they can find you and your stuff.
It's your boy Mr. T Money 1993, aka Straight Facts. First of all, before I get into all that, shout out to Scott, man. I finally realized the truth about my team, about my Panthers. They're just so not disappointing. But you can find me on YouTube, Mr. T Money 1993, Twitter, T Muhammad 23. Catch me on the Cat Chronicles website. I'm still figuring out the concept of my video for this week, but I think I'm gonna do something a little special. Other than that, WFNZ in the mornings. That's it. It's your boy.
Yeah. I am the freaking Puerto Rican, aka Joe Rilano, and you can find me on Twitter at Joe Rilano. This has been the Southbound and Down podcast, the premier NFC South podcast, brought to you by fans for fans. We are a production of Fan First Productions. That's a parent company for the CarolinaCatChronicles.com. And we appreciate you watching. Good luck, good night, and God bless.